Welcome to the David Spisak Show. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me. You're going to be absolutely delighted you did. I know that sounds like an incredibly confident statement, but I'm so fortunate to have back Diana Lee, and I say that for many reasons. I met Diana years and years ago at a conference in Vegas. I was literally sitting in the front row watching a panel, and she simultaneously dismantled and up-leveled this panel and just blew everybody away, myself included, so much so that I walked all the way around the back of the room, beelined to meet where she was coming out, introduced myself, and literally was on a plane a few days later and sitting in her office because I just needed to know more about this person and the drive, the passion, the intellect, the intelligence, the plans that she had for helping retail auto. Well, I'm very happy to have back Diana Lee, co-founder, CEO of Constellation. And Diana, thank you for taking the time to join me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, David. It's so funny as you tell this story and you did come to meet with me. I mean, you're one of the most curious people I've ever met in the industry. And I think what makes you so successful is that you have this drive that I also feel like very few people have, but you're truly an entrepreneur, and that curiosity of getting to know who the players are that move the markets and how do you basically understand them, understand their drive, and actually create networks for them in order to drive up their business, and how to actually connect all the dots between the retailers and the vendors that are out there that are successful. You have a very, very unique skill.
Thank you. You're so nice. I should also point out to everybody, we just hit our 200th episode, and you're going to be having the opportunity to listen to somebody. You should go back. You have to go back and listen to the original episode I did with Diana. I believe she was in the first 2 or 3, believe it or not. And at the time, I was hyper-focused, not even on retail auto, it was on entrepreneurs. And I really had this fascination and this curiosity, as you said, to learn what was the defining moment in that person's life. And I remember that story so vividly. So it's such an extraordinary story that you tell, being family immigrants and going to college and getting to a job. I remember as in sales at I think it was a Toyota store. And this was at a time where there were no women on the sales floor at Toyota stores. And as luck would have it, I remember you were so fortunate to meet somebody who was genuine, authentic, and really cared about you and said, I want to take you under my wing. You had somebody who was older, I don't know, maybe somebody maybe my age, that helped to make sure that you could take the skill set and the drive you had, and that the industry at that time in that store would benefit. And amazing that that person may or may not know what he actually helped create. It's crazy, right? So it's kind of like when I see people on TV, Diana, who give credit to teachers that made such a difference in their life. And it's so cool that we've got people in this industry like that gentleman, that what you're about to hear today, everybody, this guy indirectly had an awful lot to do with. Fair?
Absolutely. Everything to do with how I entered the car business and how I remained in the car business.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, because you could have easily taken your giant brain, your massive drive and your passion and gone in any number of areas. But thanks to that particular person, you actually had a positive experience when a lot of people didn't, especially women in the industry at that time, largely had a negative experience. And if that had happened, we don't even know who you are, and we're not benefiting from the Diana Lee that everybody has come to know today. So I want to thank you for all of that. I don't even know that person, but I want to thank him as well, because I've had the pleasure and honor of knowing you and hanging out with you since almost the beginning. And it's nothing short of astonishing what you've created. And at the same time, it's completely predictable when anybody hangs out with you, because when I talk about things like relentless, right? You are the poster child for relentless. And so anyways, I'm looking forward to this conversation because so much has changed. Diana, back then you were really essentially a managed services business, right? You'd built this tremendous organization that was tackling social media in a way nobody else had. But it was done in a different way that really required you to hire more and more and more people to handle managed services. And a lot has changed in the world. A lot has changed in tech, and a lot has changed in retail. And people may not know how much, as a result of all of that, you have done some incredible pivots, reinvention, despite being crazy successful. You didn't sit on it. You said, no. The world's going this way. We're going to go that way too. So could we start out with I want to talk about innovation, because so often innovation, Diana, people think about the obvious, technology innovation, but innovation also has to be an actual mindset, don't you think?
Absolutely. So it's so funny how you're talking about all of this. I started the car business back in 1989. I was 18.
Think about that, everybody. 35 years ago.
And I was going to college and really thinking, okay, I'm going to graduate and go to law school. I had no reason to stay in auto. I walked into that car dealership, which was a summer job, and I applied as the greeter because I would never have the guts to ever apply as a salesperson. And then, of course, as many of you know, things change at dealerships very quickly. But within 2 weeks, they said, oh, we have too many ups in the showroom. You're now a salesperson. You're no longer a greeter. Go. And that summer, I remember doing so well and learning, but my intention was to quit at the end of the summer and go back to college. And this is where it's so unique, because back then we worked 12-hour days. There were no choices. Either you did the 12 hours or you didn't work at the car dealership. Like now, where people are willing to be a lot more lenient, a lot more flexible with scheduling for salespeople, back then it was 12 hours or nothing at all. And so thinking about what ended up happening was I gave my notice going back to school, and this individual, his name is Chris Goodnow at the time, was a GM, and he said, look, we really enjoyed your time here. Why don't you go to school from 9 to 2 and work 2 to 9 every single day, Saturday and Sunday, and here's your demo, which happened to be a red-hot Toyota Celica. And at that time, I was just mesmerized about how generous the auto industry could be. I took the deal. And that was really the start and the learning point of where I was in the auto industry. And as you know, retail automotive is just like street fighting. I mean, you have to be a gladiator in order to last out there between everything that can go wrong within the economy, customers. And customers are hard to deal with, right? And all different types and sizes. People that basically are upside down on their trades versus ones that want really, really great deals versus credit scores and things being very bad. So you have to look at all the things that ended up happening and continue to pivot and creatively work out solutions. And if I didn't have that, David, I don't think I could have ever gotten into starting Constellation and being to pivot all over the place from May of 2016.
Yeah, you know, it's what a great way of tying those two things together, Diana, because you really do on the showroom floor have to solve in real time. Many different layers from, like you said, personalities to credit to payments, budget, expectations, right or wrong, reasonable or unreasonable, and everything else. And you have to figure that out in real time. And while we do have managers out there, they fully expect you. They certainly did back then. Figure it out, right? If you didn't figure it out, it was next. They'll get somebody else out there to take those ups from you. So it's amazing how that has fed into and created a foundation that you've continued to be able to use as a resource today as the CEO and the leader of Constellation. Let's pivot a little bit off of that. When you talk about innovation, I did a post months ago about the fact that, we had no CRMs in the 80s when I was selling cars, and we sold 10 cars a month. And, then we got CRMs, e-commerce and DMSs and social media and email and, everything else that you could imagine right up to now. And the average salesperson is still selling 10 cars a month. And so we've seen a lot of evolution in technology. We've seen a proliferation of technology, but that hasn't necessarily always translated. And one of the things I wanted to get your take on was, are we seeing true revolutions and true innovations in your mind in technology throughout the industry? Or has elements of the industry, I'm not going to name names, but maybe some of the biggest players out there who are doing so well, have massive revenue streams, and God bless them for building great businesses themselves. But maybe they've gotten so big that true innovation has left the building. Is that true?
Absolutely. I think, Dave, that's been one of my biggest frustrations, that an entrepreneur like yourself or myself, we have drive in order to revolutionize things. I don't want to be in this business in order to do the same services and products as everybody else. I am not wanting to ever be a website provider or do the same type of services that Cox Automotive and so many others are out there to do. I want to innovate, revolutionize, and make new products based on AI and revolutionize the things that are very difficult for the automotive industry. But in my own company, which is so interesting to me because now we have over 200 people. We're at the World Trade Center. We work with 17 OEMs, 2,200 franchises all across the country. Every layer of management that you put into your organization is another layer of people that can't make a decision, right? And so
it's a great way to say that. I'm going to repeat that. Actually, better yet, I'm going to have you repeat that. So companies that think they're doing the right thing by not only bringing staffing in, but layers of managers, middle managers, and so forth. Would you mind repeating that? Why is there danger in that?
Yeah. So when Constellation couldn't afford anything, right? Like literally I had $22,000 to start Constellation. I didn't really, 2 years later, I ended up raising 2.8 million of friends and family. And then in 2022, I raised another 15 million from private equity. Each step that we had more and more money, I thought, oh my gosh, my team is working so hard. I got to put in middle managers. I got to put in VPs. I got to put in more C-suite in order to give more and more structure out there. And in some ways it did, in some ways it failed. And the main reasons were this. A lot of times, if I hired people outside the automotive industry, they truly didn't understand the industry. And then the other pieces, the decisions that they were making, they weren't sure on. So they couldn't make fast decisions. And then another part is if you did hire people within the industry and they could make faster decisions because there's so many layers before innovation can get to the top, where you basically will say, product team, stop whatever you're doing. You have this new product that you have to innovate and get it out to market ASAP. I just saw something because one of our data scientists found something. Do it now. That doesn't happen in companies. They are not that nimble. Product teams have product roadmaps that go out for years. Okay. So
regardless of whether it's the right thing or not, or
Exactly.
something changes or not.
Exactly. But when you have investment money and you have people relying on you, there's no innovation because the product roadmap gets built for sometimes a year, 2 years, even 3-year product roadmaps. To come up with innovation and see something and say, okay, stop your product roadmap and put this in because this is going to be more important and this is going to happen right now. Only smaller companies can pull that off because they don't have the layers. And you yourself or other people, your other co-founders, can see what the innovation is and sideswipe the decisions of some of the other intermediate people that it's stopping the innovation from actually happening because they have a job to do right now and they have a product roadmap that they have to follow.
I think this is so interesting. And for those listening, it's analogous to me a little bit. I've told people many times that when you go onto LinkedIn and you get notifications and it says, hey, Bob just celebrated his 18th anniversary. I may not be the one who's going to congratulate Bob. Because if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again for the same company, doing the same thing for 18 years, God bless you in terms of stability, reliability, don't get me wrong, consistency. But I found that oftentimes companies with that same mindset that you just described, they don't pay you for what you do. They certainly don't pay you for what you're capable of. They oftentimes pay you just enough to keep you from doing what you really want to do, right? Or what you're really capable of doing. And I think that's a bit of a microcosm of exactly what you're saying. Getting comfortable, no matter as an individual or a company, is an incredibly dangerous thing. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I still have a lot of my employees that started Constellation with me. The danger I ran into, and this just happened like just in a couple of years ago, is when employees lose fire in their belly, they no longer have the fire to innovate. They got comfortable. So as we became bigger and bigger and bigger, my desire is to give them better salaries, right? Because I want to retain everybody. I want to retain my A talent, especially the people that have been with me throughout the road. And one of these entrepreneurs that had raised an incredible amount of money, $3 billion at one point, valuation of $3 billion, came to me and said, whatever you do, Diana, learn this one thing. When I was able to give back to my employees the value of my company and the value of my stock, the biggest mistake I made was to pay them all up front on that. Because now I made creative artists rich, like $2 million rich. And when you got $2 million in the bank, think of all the vacations and the times you could spend with your family, and you have peace of mind. You finally have a way that, that you're not going to starve anymore, right? But I believe in order to innovate, you have to have hunger. You have to have passion. You have to have desire. You have to have relentlessness. And that all goes away when money makes you comfortable.
It's so brilliantly said. I was telling somebody just this morning on a Zoom call early. People think I'm crazy sometimes, because I might be on a Zoom call at 5 a.m. I'll be in Hawaii and I'll be in a Zoom call at 3 a.m. out on the balcony. It's pitch black dark. My family is, inside. And sometimes, I'll be at 11 o'clock at night. You know the drill. Because if I'm over in Europe, I'm at 11 o'clock at night on them. And, sometimes you'll see people or hear people say, when are you going to slow down? When's it enough? And it's like, you're missing the point. It's not a money thing. It's not a money thing. It has nothing to do with money whatsoever. And if you think that's what it is, it's indicative of what your mindset is. And you need to shift that. Because if this is just about the money, the problem is once you get the money, you take the foot off the gas, the way Diana just said. But when it's not about the money, you never take the foot off the gas. I had the pleasure and honor of spending some time, thanks to the Presidio Group. Brody and his incredible team had their remarkable retailer conference. It's like nothing else out there. When you have an opportunity to spend time with a Rita Case and a Sam Pack from 5-Star, just iconic people. Roger Penske's there, right? And you have these incredible retailers that show up that don't even show up at any other event, industry events, because they don't have to. But you know why? Also, they're busy. Roger's 88 years old. Everybody, 88 years old. He works every single day. He's got a company doing $43 billion in revenue. He's in 7 countries, 4 continents, right? His company's worth over $10 billion. He's won the Indy 500 20 times. He won the race himself as a driver and walked away. He's been doing this for over 60 years. He won the Lifetime Achievement Award from Presidio yesterday. Well deserved. He should win every award. But the guy's still working. It was never about the money. It was about doing things for people, about solving, problems, about creating opportunities. And I love that you have that in your, it's literally in your core. From the first time I sat down with you, it was on, I believe it was William Street, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Right? Pretty good memory for an old dude, right? So we were on William Street and I walked in that office. You've never changed. You're now sitting on was it the 21st floor?
Yes, of the World Trade Center.
Of the World Trade Center, right? Took over from Condé Nast, I believe. And yes. You're sitting there with the incredible, literally, view of the world in the city that, is just like the epicenter of everything in the world. You've never changed. You've never slowed down. And you've never, ever stopped innovating, not from a technology standpoint, a business standpoint, or a mindset standpoint. I have such tremendous respect for that.
Thank you, David. I think it's interesting because, and I don't know anything about Roger Penske's past and what happened to him, but I believe that a lot of very successful entrepreneurs that came from nowhere, even Oprah Winfrey, right, came because of tragedy. And in my life, I've experienced a lot of tragedy. I came from South Korea, and Korea was at war at the time. My father was very abusive raising me. My parents were never around. I grew up in the streets of Philadelphia. So many bad things could have happened to me, and for the grace of God, I've escaped a lot of things. Not an easy life, but I think one of the things that happened is that I was told that I was never good enough. And, I think people, children especially, can take two paths when you're told you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not as good as everybody else, you're failing, you're not doing well. You could take the path of, I believe that, and now I'm going to destroy myself. I'm going to take the route of drugs and alcohol and all of these things to cope with that. Or you could say, I will show you, I'm going to conquer the world, and I'm going to beat your ass with it, right? And so I took that path. It was the grace of God I took that path. But it's always been an inner voice in me that says, you are not as good as those other guys. In fact, that competitor is going to kick your ass. That guy is getting bigger than you. And so every single time, the competitive side of me says, no, we're going to innovate. We're going to do it better than everybody else. I am going to pick on all of the big dogs out there. We will be better than them. And that is what the fire and everything comes from. And David, you've told me your story. It's the same as
It's the same story. It's abuse. It's abuse. It's not having people around. It's not having a childhood. It's having to grow up, to be an adult at the age of 10 or 11. It's about, having to put yourself last and having teachers or people tell you, like you said, you're not good enough. You don't go to college. It would be a waste for you. Just go get a vocational job. Nothing wrong with that. But so many people just focusing and telling you what you can't do, and you are not enough. And we're very fortunate by the grace of God that somehow, some way, we were able to rise above that. There's other kids, as you know, they don't have that same resolve or inner strength, or they just have been so beaten down.
Yes.
That they don't have anything left, and they buy into that really crappy narrative. So we're very, very fortunate, and we're so fortunate to know so many people in this business. Sam Pack, who's just an extraordinary success down there in Texas. He's just one of the greatest dealers you'll ever meet. I got to meet Carter Myers a couple weeks ago in New York, and have known Liza for many years, but never met her father. He just celebrated 100 years in business. They've been in business. Mac McClarty, these guys are just, and ladies are just icons that are out there, and they've overcome so much. And funny that you bring that up, because Sam Pack said that. He says, I come from the Midwest. We didn't have anything. We had adversity. That's what we had. And you know it, and I know it. When things come too easy, too early, that's not a blessing. It's oftentimes a curse. So I appreciate it. I see this literally in everything you do. By the way, I was going to tell anybody listening, this is no joke. And this works both ways. It's bilateral, bidirectional, I should say. If I text Diana at 8 o'clock in the evening, my time, 11 o'clock her time, I'm going to get a text back 3 minutes later. If she texts me in 5 in the morning, my time, she's getting a text back. If it's on the weekend, it's boom, boom, boom. We're all day, every day, all in, all day, every day, right?
It's absolutely true. But I even have a billionaire friend who started her company 26 years ago, and she sold. To this day, if you text her or email her, she will answer you back in 2 minutes. She is
crazy.
Game on.
So, I mean, to me, how funny that those fundamentals, those things, those rare traits, I think, that we see in people that really are the major contributors, not just to them being successful, but their organizations being successful and their people being successful, right? Because it rubs off on people. It's kind of like with Roger. People just watch Roger. His daughter they did a great film to intro him, and his daughter kept saying, I mean, what else are you going to do when you see this guy 7 days a week, do the right thing, right? Takes care of people and is detailed. And Rick Hendricks was saying, you walk, it's race day and you're walking in the area where they've got the big semis or whatever and all the equipment. And if Roger sees a sticker on one truck that's not done the right way, he'll go fix it.
Yes.
Right? It's crazy. So it's the little things. Everything counts. So listen, I agree with you. True innovation, we're at a different place in auto today. The innovation was driven for years and maybe even decades by the biggest of the big. I'm not so sure that's the case anymore. Of course, you've got tremendous innovators, disruptors like Techion, but you've got organizations like Constellation that from the ground up, because of their passion, their commitment to innovation, they're doing things that none of the big people, none of the big companies seemingly, they're not that they're not doing it, they seemingly, I don't know that they can do it. But can you talk to me about one of those innovations that's been such a big pivot is, we hear AI, Diana, everywhere. And there's been, telephony AI and conversational AI and a lot of different forms of AI. I was joking that they have to start calling the convention NADA.ai, right? Because it's ad nauseum, AI this and AI that. You're going down a different path in terms of what you're doing with AI, and it's nothing short of remarkable. I hate that you got terms out there in the world like game changer, because we got to find different terms.
Sure.
But this is literally something that will forever change the way somebody can do business, and they will forever be able to do business at a higher level. Would you mind just sharing with people listening, how did your AI solution come about, and can you explain what exactly it does for dealers and OEMs?
Absolutely, David. I think sometimes what ends up happening is because the industry doesn't innovate and we all fight for the same dollar. And for example, I've had dealers in the past make very emotional decisions on not using our services side of the business, which is paid search, social, and all that, because they got less leads, right? But how much of that decision was truly data-driven versus I just had a bad month. Never mind, it could have been his fault completely because they didn't close the leads that were coming in. And there was no data analytics, but they were just on fire and they were unleashing. And here's the real fact, David. Paid search is the road to hell. Here's the reason why, okay? At 10 to 15% margins, if I went to you at a car dealership and say your margins are 10 to 15%, and with that 10 to 15%, you now have to actually hire all of your employees, pay them, and be profitable, you would come back and you would say, it is impossible. It can't be done. So this comes with a problem right now because dealers are like, I must do Google. It starts with that problem first. I'm so trained that I must do Google and only Google, and overall it has to be most of my budget is in Google. There's AI now. There's chatbots now. There's conversational AI. There's all of these things happening, but these dealers who don't understand the innovation that's happened is still saying, I must do SEO and everything is based on Google. Not understanding that the profit margins of most of these agencies that do it is 10%. So at 10%, how good are you going to hire the best strategists to actually do it? And how much can you actually pay every single person to handle your dealer group? So all these dealers are doing is going from one vendor to another vendor to another vendor. And this is the crazy part. They don't own their own Google accounts because they never thought about that. So they basically...
Or social accounts.
Or social accounts. So they shut it off and they don't realize all of these systems, where it's Facebook, Google, or anything else, it's machine learning. So every time you shut it off and switch a vendor, you just started from zero amount of data again. It is impossible.
And you can never get your data.
Never.
Because the Google account is in the name and control of the agency, not the dealership. And a lot of people still don't know that. Facebook's the same way. So you switch agencies, it cauterizes it. Like you said, it's done. Like, who are you? I'm sorry, I can't give you your data. Wait a minute. It's our data. You know, it's ABC Toyota. Doesn't matter. ABC agency is who owns that data. What? But that's the reality.
It's the reality. And like I mentioned, there's got to be better ways to do this. So at Constellation, I developed an AI agent. It scours all of the automotive data on real time. It shows allocation, color. It shows what you ordered versus what everybody else ordered around the local market area for every brand, 17,500 U.S. franchises, 6.4 million daily VINs that go up and down on every website based on pricing, and now answers any questions such as, how do I steal market share of 3% in Southern Florida for my Lexus store? It's going to answer in 1 minute. It's going to give you the marketing strategy. It's going to give you the allocation strategy, the color strategy, the pricing strategy. Ordering strategy. It's going to tell you what that guy's done versus what you have done. It's going to tell you who are the shakers and the movers that are about to take your market share before you even know that it's actually going to happen. And the reason why I did it was I don't want the industry to make decisions that are not data-driven anymore. I can't take it. So even the OEMs, they only have it of their own data sets. They do not have all the data sets of each other, especially at the local level. Nobody aggregates it. And so they're reporting their allocation, their trim level. So Atlanta is saying that they're going to cut 2 trims this month. It was not a data-driven decision. And because it's not data-driven, because truly to make a data-driven decision, you have to make it based off of all of the data in the marketplace, not just yours, because every AI model changes when you actually drive all of the decisions based off of all of the VINs, not just your VINs that you actually have. So for me, if you are going to do digital marketing, I don't want a strategist to tell me whether it's a good job or a bad job. The agent says it at a level playing field, based on what it believes off of your data and everybody else's data in the local market area, based on their spends, your spends. So when we say, I want to do search engine marketing and I want to spend $30,000, do you truly need $30,000? And the vendor wants the most amount of money from you because typically every vendor is getting paid percentage of fees. So percentage of media. So it is to their advantage that you spend more and more and more and more. And so why do we have these systems set up like this? And that is what I'm trying to dismantle. Do you realize now with AI and the agents that we have on hand, you don't need to have a marketing report from any of your agencies in the future. Nobody. You can ask the question, all of that in real time, and it'll tell you whether it's actually working or not. Because most agencies in the automotive industry are so big, they have automated the systems. That's the only way they could stay alive, you guys. It's not because they're bad vendors. It's not because they're horrible people. It's not because they don't care about you. It's because they make a 10% fee structure. And unless they automate every single way of doing it, they can't stay alive.
Let me clarify a couple things, if I may. First of all, it's so funny how once this industry gets tuned in or turned on to something, man, they will hold on to it sometimes like a dog on a bone, right? So it doesn't matter whether it works or doesn't work. They just keep doing what they've been doing because that's what they've always been doing, right? This is what my manager did. This is what their manager did. I'll give you a couple examples. So first of all, with respect to Google, when Google first came out, it was freaking awesome. It was awesome. Like for those of you that are under 35, like you have no idea how awesome Google was back then.
Amazing.
But that's not what Google is today. It's not. And you have to know this. You know, search is part of our lives. It absolutely is. But search has changed dramatically, right? Think about the searches that are not being done on Google today. Think about the searches that are done on Amazon. Think about the searches that are done on Claude or Anthropic or OpenAI. The world has changed. Think about this, that for everything that I spend with Google, at best 2.5 or 3% of the people that get hit are in market. The rest of them, I'm an annoyance, plain and simple. I'm just an annoyance. They don't even want to hear from me. They didn't ask to hear from me. So that's a really dramatically different situation. And where we're going today, and what you're doing is really allowing dealers to take control in a way that's just never been possible. Take control with transparency, accountability, understanding what's driving the market. You're talking about having the same level to some degrees as Amazon has been using to create that beast of a company they have, where they've been using this type of AI for many years. Second thing, speaking of Amazon, interestingly, you know, Jeff Bezos at one point said, I predict Amazon's going to go out of business.
Absolutely.
Okay. Today or yesterday, a high-ranking person at Apple said, I don't know if there's going to be an iPhone 10 years from now. Really? It's 50% of their revenue. How could they not have an iPhone? Not sure that you'll need it. Tim Cook has been relentlessly pursuing a lightweight set of glasses where I can do everything on those glasses. Here's the screen. It's right here. Here's the microphone. Here's the camera. Why do I need to carry this thing around? So the thing is that right before your very eyes right now, if you're a dealer, whether you know it or not, you may have competitors that have access to solutions like this, right? How many? 2,200 dealers, 17 OEMs, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, whether you believe in it or not. I'll tell you one thing you can know for certain. You don't want to be competing against dealers that have this level solution and you don't.
Exactly.
That's a problem. Agreed?
Absolutely. I think that, and I have right now almost 100% closing ratio after a demo because nobody's seen anything like this. It's mind blowing. I mean, I know that
it says an awful lot. You know, when you show it to 100 people and 99 go, yes, please.
Absolutely.
When can I get that?
I'm onboarding the last 100 that I already met with. But I'm going to say one thing, and I say this to all the dealers, don't do it. If you don't want to, don't do it. Because at the end of the day, if your competitors or your neighbors have done it, they're going to have a clear-cut, huge advantage. And the more data sets that I'm entering in, more of an advantage every single month. It's going to continue having because AI is getting smarter and smarter and smarter, just like our AI with more data points are getting smarter, smarter, smarter. And if you don't do it now and you don't start using it, you will be left behind in the future.
I agree. And I was saying this to a number of dealers in the last month. If you think about it, when it comes to your sales, and let's put aside for a minute the brand, the models, and the incentives, because that's kind of the same across, whether you're a Honda, Subaru, Chevy, Stellantis, same. At the end of the day, you've got your sales team, right, which is sales associates and managers. You've got your technology stack, which means everything from your DMS to every solution that you use in your store. And then you have your marketing, which is, call it marketing, advertising, intelligence, all of that. And I really think we're moving from the old traditional marketing to really marketing intelligence. Do you agree with
Absolutely.
that? So think about this. So if I have a better tech stack than you, Diana, and I have better marketing intelligence than you have one bullet left in your gun. You better pray that you have by far the most talented, disciplined, consistent, high-performing sales team in the market, or I am going to bludgeon you. I can have a B team against your A team, and because of my A team solutions, A team marketing intelligence, A team tech stack, I'm going to bludgeon you. It's just the way it is. And if you have the best, and by the way, here's a simple test I tell people. If you've never been number one in your market or region, you don't have the number one sales team. So you better be getting the best solutions out there, or you're going to have a tougher and tougher time. I think today are the good old days. Tariffs and all, it's the good old days, right? Because if anybody doesn't think that 6 months or a year or 2 years from now is going to be more challenging, more competitive, hyper-competitive, I think they've got another thing coming. So
I've been talking to some of these dealers and I show them their report. I show it to them and I say, okay, it's even beyond the best sales team. How the hell are you going to beat that market if the number one dealer is basically building vehicles $3,000 with less trim than you? Let's take a look at their trims. We look at their trims. That's what they're ordering. You actually have $3,000 more worth options. If they put a $299 payment, it's impossible for you to actually have a price leader that's even close. So that is one thing I will tell you for all the dealerships that I'm looking at, all of the data and all the conversations I'm having. The one same thing that keeps happening, the number one dealer in that market understands the allocation, the pricing, and exactly is using that price leader to actually grab the market. Unless
they are.
You have
it's
data.
True. And I have all the data on the back end, as you know. I've got all the DMS data, right, for clients across the country. And I do these advanced insight reports, and one of the things I show them is by that segment. And what's remarkable is if you look at the turn rate, right, how fast is that $25,000, $22,000 loss leader kind of car moving versus the $27,000 or now the $38,000 Compass? Those aren't flying off the shelves, I promise you, right? And then you get up to the 45, the 50s, and so forth. And the same thing on the pre-owned side. It's completely predictable. Anybody who thinks you need somebody who has a gut, oh boy, this person, he's been in the business for a long time, so he's got a gut feeling. Let him keep his gut feeling, okay? Because AI today is going to destroy and dominate anybody who's attempting to make these kinds of decisions with their gut. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And it's only getting better from here. So all these dealers that are coming on, I was like, look, next month, this is going to even be better because I have more data sets. Next month after that, I add more data sets. It's only going to get smarter and smarter and smarter. And overall, I know this sounds very scary. You don't need marketing strategists in the future. You don't need brand managers in the future. The report will be able to do it in 1 minute. They could do higher level functioning work, but you won't have to do the grunt work of making a report for any stores in the future.
For any kind of marketing intelligence or any kind of sales
What sales?
data.
The agent will do it for you within 1 minute. You don't have to lift a finger.
Yeah, it's crazy. So let me ask you a couple things as we get close to wrapping up, because there's a couple other things to cover. Number one, the AI solution that you've created, Diana. Tell me literally within the first 7 days, what are they seeing? Like, what is the biggest impact for them having that type of power at their disposal?
The question I ask in most demos is, how do I steal the market share, the most amount of market share in my local market area? Or how do I steal the market share from this dealer? That's the question that comes up all the time. It gives you a 5-page playbook based off your marketing, your allocation, your colors, your price strategy, what you're doing well, options, what you're doing well, what your weakness is. The fact that you don't have pictures, that you have 17 missing images on your website, the fact that you don't have your specials and your SRP up for that X3, what the other dealers are doing versus what you're doing and why you're losing that market share is now available to you in 1 minute. And I'm going now and downloading all the marketing data across the entire country, whether you do business with me or not.
Well, let's talk about something else.
Yeah.
Let's talk about tariffs. Everybody's favorite T word, tariff. You know, the word tariff showed up over 500 times in headlines in the month of April, and it's exhausting, right? I'm already fatigued on the word tariff, and I think we got to be very careful as an industry, because on any given day, we saw today an announcement as you and I are sitting here with the UK as an agreement. And these things are going to ebb and flow, and you don't have control over them. But the one thing I can tell you with complete confidence and certainty is we're going to get to the end of the year and there will be tariffs in place, period. We don't know exactly where, how much, what the impact's going to be. We also know that it's not going to be equally applied or felt by brands. Some brands are in far better shape than others. Right? Some markets are going to be in different shapes than others. What can you do with that type of power with your AI? Yeah. Can you apply that same type of power to help dealers and OEMs with respect to what's happening almost on a daily basis with tariffs?
Absolutely. So I just had a dealer that basically asked the question of the AI agent, if I end up having to get this car $2,000 higher on MSRP, because it's what the OEMs are basically suggesting to do, how much market share am I going to lose? And it actually calculates the market share you'll lose by every model and how much it's going to actually take and how much days to sell goes up on that model, which means the floor plan cost to you is going to be that much more. So it actually doubled the number and said, you're currently turning a 25-day rate. This is going to go up to 50 days. It tells you that all up. And
so by having that data, could it also possibly give very expert advice on how to adjust my allocation? What
Absolutely.
I take, what I don't take?
So, and this is, I think, some of the OEMs, they are a little bit nervous about this information going out because obviously same make models, you would be able to understand the inventory systems and why other people were able to make exactly that vehicle and you are not allowed to make that type of trim choices. So I do think it's going to bring a lot of transparency to the surface, and overall, they may not all be happy about that transparency. But I believe that data-driven decisions need to be the future of automotive.
What's next?
I think right now it's trying to get as many people using AI systems and really getting people to understand how it's going to work. Because just like Google search, this, I guarantee you, David, will revolutionize the industry.
Diana, you mentioned no longer needing potentially a brand strategist, marketing strategist, which those normally are reserved at the levels of a tier 1, right?
Yes. Or
certainly can have a tier 2 marketing strategist, not brand. And in tier 3, the top 150, undoubtedly have marketing directors or some formal marketing agency. And it sounds like this is not necessarily bad news for an agency. It sounds like, on one hand, it sounds like it could be a threat because, hey, you don't have to spend as much money doing what you used to do in certain areas of marketing. But it sounds like what it really does is liberates your marketing, your current marketing budget to frankly be more effective.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing it does is when I say that there's a lot of agencies out there that they can't make the margin through manpower, this allows them to have better people work for the organization doing higher level work instead of making decks all day. Even the publics, they're making decks all day, right? At the end of the day, everybody's making a deck to prove a point to somebody.
Just to prove a narrative.
It's their narrative based on the story they want to tell.
Yes.
That's what I need and want to stop in America. At the end of the day, we are not making good decisions without the data. And here with AI agents, it can basically analyze 3 billion lines of data within a minute now. Nothing that a human being can even do or come close to. But imagine the power and imagine what you can do with this in the future if you could get involved now.
You may know this. I introduced data to retail dealers. I was saying data and dealing with data a decade before anybody said the word data, because I really got introduced by somebody that took an interest in me. It was kind enough to share some insights that I had no idea the power of data. And so I leveraged data in the early 90s. And it's really tremendous to see what's happened in the 35 or so years since then, how far that we've come. And what's most meaningful, I think, for dealers is, when you went to New Orleans, if you were in New Orleans, if you were lucky enough to trudge through all of the weather and deal with all the nonsense and the delays and canceled flights, and I know a lot of dealers were not able to do that, but the length of that exhibition hall, Diana, was 1 mile long. The number of booths was over 2,300. The number of solutions is in the thousands, right? Mm-hmm. Strike that. Products, software, technology, not necessarily solutions. But we're coming to a point in time today where when you can have true innovation and you could have the mindset that you have and some of the great thought leaders have today, and you combine it with what we have in front of us right now with AI, I think we're going to see more transformative change, meaningful change, and the ability for dealers to take control of their future if they choose to, based on what you're able to do today with data and with AI. Would you mind just giving me your take on that?
I absolutely agree, David. Do not get out of bed to be a search provider. And I don't think anybody wants to in the future. To me, Google's the day of the past. There's much brighter things to look forward to. There's so many exciting innovations in AI, and the faster we can get to it, the more we can revolutionize our industry.
I agree with you. Parting words, Diana. So as we move on into, this is the month of May. It's hard to believe we're almost halfway through 2025. It seems like this year has already been 8 years long with all the headlines and the gyrations and everything going. I was at the New York Auto Forum 2-3 weeks ago, and then being at the Presidio event. I'll be at Osotu next week, doing some speaking and some events out there. But there's so much that has happened already this year. What's your outlook for the industry as we go through the remaining 6-7 months of the year here?
I think it's very exciting times. There's going to be major winners and losers. And it's like street fighting all over again. And I know dealers love that competitive edge. And so I think that if they get involved right now with AI and some of these strategies that's happening in real time, it's going to give them a huge competitive edge towards everybody else. And you got to think past Google. That's my only advice to everybody.
I could not agree with you more. You just maybe conjure up an image in my mind. I'm thinking of the old, when I was a kid in the 60s, the big movies you'd see would have been Gladiators or would have been Wild Wild West. And you get into these street brawls, Wild Wild West. And then you had in whatever it was, maybe the early 80s, I guess it was Star Wars, right? And we elevated ourselves to lightsabers. And, today, I mean, it's really extraordinary. The ability to, like you said, the street brawl has itself transformed. The essence of it is there. You still need to have that persistence and tenacity and that relentless nature. But man, oh man, if you thought a lightsaber was good, you have no idea what is possible to have in your hands today as a dealership. And it's incumbent on you, I believe, as a dealer, the decisions you make, I promise you this, the decisions you make with respect to your store, your technology, your tech stack, your marketing strategy, your marketing intelligence, the decisions you make in the next 3 to 6 months are going to define what happens in your store probably for the next 3 to 5 years. And I think it's that big of a deal. Am I overselling that, overstating it?
Absolutely not, especially now more than ever.
Yeah, I think these are truly different times. I love this business. I've always loved this business. It's never been more interesting or fascinating. And I'm so thankful that we have leaders and innovators and relentless folks like yourself, people like yourself, standing on the front edge, pushing people to think differently, because it's by virtue of thinking differently and reinventing that we will continue to be a very resilient and successful industry. And if not, you said something a few minutes ago. There are going to be winners and losers. I don't think that's what's going to change as much as how much the bandwidth, the difference between the winners and the losers. I think that gap is about to get a whole lot bigger.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, thank you for taking the time. Hard to believe 200 plus episodes have gone by. You look like it's Benjamin Buttons. Like you have not, the industry has been you have not changed literally a stitch for all the hours you put in and the effort you put in. I just wish you and the Constellation team all the best. I'm excited to see, the AI solution in place around the country, and most importantly, how it's going to help those dealers level up their success and their ability to compete at a completely different level. So thank you for taking the time to join me. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your perspectives.
Thank you, David.
Always a pleasure, Diana.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for those of you that were kind enough to hang out with us and listen to the conversation, I hope you thoroughly enjoyed it as much as I did. If you want to learn more, go to davidspisak.com. You could download this episode, and you could also get it wherever you listen to your podcast, of course, Apple, Spotify. But more importantly, you could get show notes. Every show note that we discussed, everything we discussed, you could also find out how to connect with Diana and with Constellation and how to learn more about this truly innovative solution that they have rolled out into the market. By the way, Diana, how long ago did this roll out in the market?
One of the OEMs had us actually do it for the entire group. And then in the last 60 days, we started to roll it out just to tier 3 alone.
So it's very fresh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, thank you again for everybody. Please take the time to share this episode out to anybody who is interested in what's next in retail automotive. Thanks so much. See you next time on the David Spisak Show.